Let's have a look at this essay question here. In Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen suggests that marriage is primarily an economic arrangement. Discuss. Okay, so prepositional, quotation or question. Where are we going with this one, guys? We're going to prepositional, of course. I knew you would answer that. See, I don't even need you to speak back to me. I can, in the ether, the vibes, okay? I get it already, okay? So what I've done is I've unpacked this essay question already, and I want to talk to you about how I unpacked it and what I was aiming to do, okay? That is available on pages 48 and 49 of the booklet. So let's go to that. 38, 39. Oh, I've got to go way back. Oh, 48, 49. Okay. So I've taken this essay question and had a think about it, okay? So is marriage just about an economic arrangement? Does every experience of marriage in Pride and Prejudice suggest that it's just about either protecting your money, getting money, inheriting money, blah, 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 blah? No, it doesn't. It's not. In fact, you would know that Lizzie wasn't at all driven by the notion of an economic incentive. Give me evidence that she wasn't driven by that. Give me evidence from the text that suggests that Lizzie wasn't willing to marry just for money. Come on, guys. Well, of course, she knocks back Darcy, doesn't she? Yep, she rejects, and Mr. Collins as well. And Mr. Collins, in some ways, was going to secure her family. Okay, she knocks back Mr. Collins because she finds him repugnant, and she does the same, actually, for Mr. Darcy, not because she finds him necessarily physically repugnant, but because she finds him, so arrogant, so prideful, boastful, and so prejudiced, okay? So in thinking about this, I already know that, yes, I agree that Austen does suggest that marriage is an economic arrangement, but she suggests more than this. Now, of course, the word primarily is important here, and primarily means centrally, or most importantly. Okay, so in thinking about this, I was starting to think, okay, yes, she does suggest that marriage provides economic security for women, okay? And she is really critical of this. So we see through her characterisation of Lucy that she is criticising women who marry, who settle for convenience, who see marriage as a job, as a vocation, okay? She's critical of that. Ultimately, she actually argues that marriage for compatibility and love is what she's after. So what I'm going to do in this is I'm going to probably do a yes, no, no. Okay, so my argument is going to be yes, no, no. Now, I wrote this a year ago, so let me see if I can remember what I wrote. Okay, so my first argument is my yes, okay? And this would be my topic sentence, okay? And you see what I haven't said is, yes, I agree, okay? Marriage is, for most women, the only avenue through which they can achieve financial security and social standing, and thus the search for an eligible husband consumes the life of most women. I agree, okay? I agree that marriage and or economic stability, economic survival is a huge impetus for marriage, okay? I absolutely do. And I'm going to give you some examples and have a look. Notice my examples aren't just one. I'm not just doing one character. I'm showing you that I understand the breadth of this, okay? So a really easy example, Mrs. Bennet. She's a woman whose business of her life was to get her daughters married. What is she driven by there? She has 5 daughters. When her husband dies, she cannot inherit, neither can her daughters, because inheritance is through the male line. This is a patriarchal society. Mr. Collins inherits. That's why she wanted one of her daughters to marry Mr. Collins, okay? I also think that Austen's portrayal of Mrs. Bennet is in some ways a bit sad. I think it reflects this tragedy that for many women, particularly, upper middle to upper class women who couldn't work, okay, they couldn't work because they're too rich to work, right? The only security for them is through marriage. And you can imagine the stress that this would sort of, induce for women who are slightly older than marriageable age. And I mean, 18, 19 is when people are getting married. Okay, so I wanted to say that, Mrs. Bennet, certainly, she embodies this notion of, marriage being about economic security. But in some ways, Austen is quite sympathetic of that because she's saying, well, they had to. There was no other choice. Very realistically, her and her 5 daughters could become destitute, homeless after her husband dies. Okay. I also think that what she's doing here is she's making a commentary. So this is where I'm becoming quite nuanced. By nuanced, I mean I'm trying to come up with an argument that actually goes, ooh, okay. I think because women are forced into this sort of arrangement where they have to compete for eligible husbands, you get this competition, you get this really unhealthy rivalry, and it's not nice. So women kind of get this, I guess, kind of like a double smackdown. The first one is you have to get married because you can't have a job. And you have to think about who you're marrying because it's got to be survivable economically. The second thing is, you are going to have to compete. Okay, so you've got this notion of, how beautiful am I? How accomplished am I? How, can I play the piano? Can I sing? Can I read books? Can I do needlepoint? It puts a lot of pressure on women, and I don't think that's particularly healthy. So to me, I'm making a comment on this here, okay? So my first argument is, yep, I agree. The next one is, it's not just women. Okay, so this is okay, so I'm middle ground now. I haven't gone to the no, but I've said, but it's not just women that do this, it's men. Both women and men with limited income marry to increase their social standing. Okay, both of them. Okay, they do it in different ways. Wickham attempts to seduce Georgiana into an elopement because if you go away with a man, the inference at the time is that you've had sex. Now you're not innocent. You must get married. Okay, so he tries to sort of force a marriage and therefore become wealthy. He then does it to Kitty. Okay, we know that Mr. Collins wants to get married as a form of career progression because he wants to become a pastor. And at Rosings Park, Lady de Burgh was going to give him the, what's it called? The parsonage. Thank you very much, Catherine. Okay. So there's this idea that it's not just women. She's not just making a comment on women. She's making a comment on people that marry for the wrong reasons or what she sees to be, dubious reasons. And people get married for reasons other than just money. For Kitty, it's about social status. I mentioned this before. Remember, Kitty's now the older sister, right? And she competes with her sisters to get married first because then she's the missus. She gets to walk first. Okay, so I've got a yes, I've got a, it's not just women. And now I've got the real kicker. Really, Austen is deriding these ill-suited marriages. She is criticising them. She advocates for marriage based on compatibility and love. Okay, she satirises all those marriages that don't work. She looks at ill-suited marriages, okay, and she looks at compatible marriages, okay. So I like that point there. You're right. The topic didn't mention it, but I can tell you from my understanding of this, most people will look at the role of women. They won't look at women and men. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm showing that I understand that this is something I can break open. I'm inferring. Okay, I'm not suggesting that the question asks about women, but I'm saying, first of all, yeah, often women do it. And we see that really plain as day in the text. Smack you in the face, okay? But it's the men as well, and we've got to have a look at those. Ultimately, however, so I'm progressing an argument, okay? So I'm making inferences. I'm going beyond the obvious. So a low essay would suggest maybe argument one would be, yes, it's primarily economic, okay? Number two might be it's primarily economic because women didn't have many options. And number three would be, but some people can marry for love. It's got to be more than that. It's got to be sort of more nuanced, okay? So I see your question there, Albert, but what I'm sort of suggesting here, well, what I am suggesting, is that you need to sort of come up with an angle, okay? So that looking at opposites can be one way of doing it. So the opposite of marriage being an economic arrangement is to look at marriage for love and compatibility. I think the inference here is very much on the marriageability of women in the text primarily. So I'm going to flip that as well. Okay. Okay. So I hope that uncovers that a bit more. I understand your point, but I'm still on topic and I'm still going deeper, and I'm saying she's making a commentary not just about women who marry as an economic arrangement, because typically, remember, it's women that can't inherit. She's also making a comment about men. Okay, so that can be a really useful one. Now, after this, what we've got is we've got a range of essay questions. Now, I suggest a whole range of activities in this booklet. So use these arguments to write an introduction, okay? Then we've got a range of other topics that we go through. Yes, you do have to state your contention. Yes. Okay, so in an introduction, you've got to state contention and flag or signpost supporting arguments. Now I use this language because otherwise it gets really confusing, okay? I use contention being my overall argument, and I use supporting arguments or sub-arguments, okay? Some people call this a thesis statement. I'm not one of those people, okay? Now, the way that you do this is you can either signpost, so usually you have an intro context sentence, so context sentence. Then you do signpost 1, signpost 2, signpost 3, and contention. So ultimately, I love the word ultimately. Mine almost always have ultimately in it. Or you can flip that and you can put your contention up here and then have the reasons underneath, okay? So learning to write a good introduction is you're right, it's important, okay? So please do have a look at all of these things. And can I suggest that doing essay plans and then writing the introduction is a really good way of practicing, and then occasionally writing the full body paragraph as well to work on that level of evidence, you know, those 3 levels of evidence: quotes, authorial intent, and literary devices. In here, there's a whole range of samples. Keep going. So here's some sample essays. Borrow sentence stems, borrow transitions. Okay, do all that kind of stuff.